JrXT restoration series, where I have changed my mind yet again. It's morning up here in the Vintage Display YouTube studios, and getting an early jump on things with a JrXT video. I know, but hear me out. So the other kits are ready to go. This one is going to be the least interesting to film, so I'm not sure when it'll come out in the series, because I have to go through the parts to build it, which is... What are you doing? Orange cat problems. He doesn't have the brain cell right now. Another orange cat somewhere has the brain cell, and he is he's not big on change. And this is a lot of change. So I'm trying to clean things up here a little bit, make them look a little bit more presentable, make my videos a bit less painful for you to watch while trying to learn about some RC. So, yeah, we're going to build a JrXT first. It's okay to do it now that all the other kits have been laid out. All the parts for the JrXT, the two JrXT Shelf Queens, have been set aside into containers. So now I can pick through what's left to make a JrXT Shelf Queen. So I'll basically just cut in and out as things of interest happen, and we'll go from there. If something of note is worth mentioning, we'll slow down the fast forward or high speed sections, turn the camera back on, whatever. And we'll bring you guys in to see what we're discovering along the way while we build this vintage Team Losi JrXT. All right, let's get started. I'm gonna build the JrXT for the shelf using my third best parts. First best, earliest all went to the Shelf Queen, and then the next Shelf Queen JrX2 that I'm putting together. So yeah, let's get started. Let's talk about this shock tower for a second. It is used and beat up. Somebody even countersunk these holes here, which is not original, to allow flathead screws so that they could mount an ESC up here instead of on the side of the chassis. And I kind of get it. Back in the day, ESCs were big and chunky, especially if you're using something like a Novak T1X, which is more than you would need for something like this. A T1 would have been fine. And then, of course, the 410 series. But anyway, I digress. Why am I using such a beat up shock tower on a Shelf Queen? Simply because the top body mount is broken, which is not used on the JrXT. So I'm keeping all of my better condition JrX2 style shock towers for JrX2s. That's it. I mean, it's not a nice example of a shock tower, but I can't use it on JrX2. So even though it's broken, I'm going to use it on JrXT Shelf Queen and keep my better ones for JrX2 cars. Alright, I want to take an opportunity to point out the difference between a couple of parts here, and they are the JrX2 bulkhead. Even though they're still both stamped JrX2, there is a difference, and the difference is a little lip on the front here. The early JrX2s didn't use a bumper, so they had molded a lip on the front of the bulkhead to protect the front of the chassis. So here we have a JrXT chassis. Bulkhead fits on there like that. And if we flip it over, you can see that the plastic lip is folded down in front of the front leading edge of the JrXT chassis. Now, this bulkhead does not have that. Why? Why, might you ask? They removed it so that when it's placed on a JrXT chassis or Pro, because the Pro also used a front bumper, and there's your answer. I just spoiled it. Line those holes up so the edge extends past the leading edge of the chassis, but it doesn't actually curl in front of the carbon fiber or the graphite plate. That's to accommodate your JrXT front bumper slash body mount. If you tried to put this bumper on here with the JrX2, you'd have some fit issues. Let's see if we can. So it is ever so slightly, the camera's not going to push that up, but what's happening is this bulkhead, the JrX2 bulkhead with the JrXT bumper, is slightly pushing down, and I mean slight, on the front bumper of the JrXT. So there you have it, another evolution of the parts. So if you're on eBay and you're shopping for a JrX2 bulkhead, pay attention to which one you're getting, because it may not be the best fit for your needs. So here I am going through the gearboxes that I have, seeing which ones would be appropriate for the JrXT. And obviously, you know, something went awry here. This corner got cut off, and unless this was a T, why would you bother drilling a new hole? So there's a new hole drilled through here. So somewhere out there, I imagine that there is a JrXT rear body mount with a hole drilled through it in an unusual location. So I don't want that on my Shelf Queen JrXT, that's for sure, but it would be fine for a buggy. And then, oh, look at this now. Okay, all right. So these are a match. Remember, I disassembled a bunch of stuff and just threw everything in a box after it was clean. So this one still has glue residue on this corner, probably where a switch was glued down. Very common thing. We used to run the switch out the back. And then this corner was broken off and 2 new holes drilled there. Don't know the story on this, but it's had a hard life. The rest of these, I don't know if the screw holes are stripped out or not. That can be a thing as well. By screw holes, I mean the one on the bottom that hold it to the chassis. And then, this is another interesting situation here. Would you look at that? Just look at it. When I see something like that, I just have to say, well, would you look at that? Just look at it. What do you see? some meathead has removed the molded piece on the end that guides your Allen wrench into the side of the gearbox to adjust the differential. That's too big anyway, but when you build a vintage Team Losi differential, it's important that there's a bolt that goes through the diff into a nut, and tightening it, oh, that feels buttery smooth. Tightening that is how you adjust your differential. Now, in modern cars and in later generations of these cars, you set the diff and you forget it, and then you adjust your slipper clutch. So this hole in the side of the gearbox was to allow you to access that screw to tighten the differential. So when you assembled the differential, you placed it, after it was assembled and you assembled the gearbox, you placed it into the gearbox so that that button head bolt was lined up with that hole. And you adjusted your differential by putting an Allen wrench through the side of the gearbox. Okay? Now, I don't know what parts container they're in right now. No, they're in this parts container. Your kit also came with a little rubber plug, dust boot that you put over the side to keep the dirt out of that hole. What in the ever-loving name of baby Jesus is going on here? Why would anyone ever cut that off? I don't know. When you're dealing with used parts. So, there you go. And that bolt is a 5/64. Everything else on the car is 3/32, 440 hardware for the most part. There's some 8/32 hardware. But that bolt uses a 5/64 Allen wrench. Okay? Alright, so that was interesting. So, we're not done. The fun continues. Here's a damaged gearbox as well. I don't know what's going on here. Something has worn a hole through the side of that gearbox. Well, it's not something, I know what it is. It's probably a top shaft with a rogue idler gear. Yeah, so you had a bushing or a bearing that went bad, and that idler gear destroyed the gearbox by running against it. So I imagine that the bearing that goes on the shaft here was bad, and wow, hold on. Oh, that's the side of the outdrive. How in the oh yeah, okay. Still, yeah, so a bearing failed and the top shaft chewed a hole through the side of the gearbox. So I can't use it in a runner, obviously, because we don't want dirt and debris getting inside our gearbox. We could always patch it on the outside. But for a shelf queen, no, I can't even bring myself to use it on a shelf queen. Man, that's too bad. That is too bad, because otherwise she's in pristine condition. Good thing I went through all the parts and put the best parts aside for those other cars. So this one has been chewed up. This one has a hole in the side, and this one has had the molded part that the dust boot goes on removed completely. Grotesque. Grotesque, I tell you.
So now that they're on the car, let's see what happens when I move the wrench forward towards the front. Okay, so it's bringing the hub in, so it's making the link shorter. And the same thing is happening on that side. Excellent. Good. That's what you want, guys. You want to make sure that they're all facing the same direction so that you move the wrench in the same direction, in this case forward, on all four wheels to get my links to shorten. So much easier to adjust them on the car than trying to, and I'm not putting these plastic ball cups and pliers because I want to keep them as pristine as possible. So I had to get them on the car and then make some adjustments. The final adjustments will be done with a camber gauge once the wheels are on, of course, so that everything looks right. Moving on to the next step. Alright, much progress has been done. Let's do a quick little update. The front turnbuckles and steering links have been done. Again, making sure that the directions, in an earlier video I misspoke. I said, what did I say? I said right-handed thread instead of left-handed thread, or left-handed thread instead of right-handed thread. Yeah, left-handed thread. So one side of these turnbuckle shafts is a left-handed thread, so you actually would turn the ball cup backwards counterclockwise to get it to move up the shaft. So be mindful of that, so that you put them all the left-handed threads facing on the same direction. So for example, on this car, all of the turnbuckles have the left-handed thread on this side, on the right. Why wouldn't I just put all the left-handed threads on the left? I'm a moron. How could this only occur to me now? Huh. I don't know if it's the dyslexia or the ADD, but here we are. Okay, so right now the truck is almost at the point where we could call it a slider. And it's totally complete with the exception of I'm missing the little cup that goes up on the antenna tube mount. As far as the manual, once I started to read it, the only thing that has kind of tripped me up so far, and not really, is when it comes time to install the front hinge pins for the front arms. You've installed the bumper in a previous step. Now you have to remove the bumper, otherwise there's just no getting the pins in. You can't get them past the chassis, and you can't get them past the bumper. But it's not bad. I popped all the ball cups on the studs by hand, and I did that to avoid marking them. They already have some marks on them. These are not the best, cleanest ball cups that I have. Those have been put into the kits I built for the JrXT Shelf Queens, but I didn't want to mark them up any more than they already were. So let's see, where are we now? Moving right along now to, shock assembly. Everyone loves shock assembly. So I have all of my shock parts in the same container. Thank goodness. I have more money than skill. Not that I have much of either. And I bought pre-assembled rear JrXT or JrX2 shocks. Interesting. They were listed as T. I have a question for you. If you know, please put the answer in the comments below. Are the rear shocks on a JrXT longer than they are on a JrX2 or a JrX Pro? Comment down below if you know. I haven't gotten around to measuring the shock bodies yet. So anyway, as I was saying, I have pre-assembled shocks that I will put on the back, and then I will assemble some front shocks. Now I know that my front bodies are going to be not buggy bodies. I know that the front bodies on the Pro and on the T are longer than they are on the Junior or JrX2, Junior 2 I suppose as well. And for that matter, the Pro SE went back to a short shock in the front. Time to look up some part numbers. I did that earlier on the steering rack because there are two different length steering racks. They don't call it a rack. do the short one here. Yeah, here we go. What are the chances that I reach in the box and pull out all three the same? Here we go. There are different length. They don't call this a rack. Most of us in modern, building modern buggies, we call these the turnbuckles. Sorry. We call these the bell cranks. And this straight bar the rack. It's not called a rack here. They call it some weird obscure name. Anyhow, there's two different sizes, as you can see. And I'm assuming that this is a newer one for the composite chassis that maybe are more narrow in the front. So anyway, I looked up the part number in the JrXT manual, and then I went Googling, and it was listed as long. So I used a long one. Seems to fit well. Back to the shocks. I'll get back to you after I have the front shocks built and all 4 shocks installed. Well, alrighty guys, stick a fork in this one because it's done, and it came out a lot better than I thought. Took a lot longer than I thought. My goodness, like much longer than I thought. Probably because, you know, you're not really building it from a kit. I was looking through, like when you open up a kit, there's your bag of parts, that's all you got. I was taking my time and looking at 6 front arms at the same time and trying to pick out the best ones. Ultimately, I guess that's why things took as long as they did. So all that's left to do now is mount the body. I talked to my painter and he said to go ahead and mount it, that would be fine. The reason why I want to do that, the modern stuff I don't bother, but I want to make sure that I get the mounting there are no body post locations marked on the body, and so when it's painted I may have a hard time getting things lined up. So I'm going to line things up before getting it painted just to make life easier for me. And I don't think I realized this, but it comes with a sheet of decals. Very nice Abilitech. That's cool, because I had ordered some JrXT decals from MCI, which I won't need now. Window masks and everything. So that's cool. Really impressed with that. And one of the other videos I mentioned I had ordered 2, because I also have on the floor there, I've got my runner. And it doesn't have a body, so I ordered 2 at the same time. And I just got word that the other one is on the way. So, the reason why this runner is going to stay with the H-arms, I mean, yeah, okay, I cheated. I turned a JrX Pro, which you can tell by the cutout here for the servo saver, into a JrXT. I don't want to use original Team Losi vintage shocks on runners if I don't have to, because it's literally a waste of oil. They leak oil so bad. So I've used truck shocks from probably a Team Associated T6.1. Yeah, so that just makes maintaining a runner so much easier because the shocks don't leak like the vintage ones do. And so rather than trying to figure out a way to get a bottom onto these shocks to work on the 5 link, it's not worth it. So back to this one. Super happy. Like, it is much cleaner, real good quality. Like, it's worthy of a shelf clean. It's not made from new old stock parts, but it's made from lightly loved parts for sure. Those orange wheels didn't have to touch the front because it already had Team Losi ribbed front tires on it. The back tires I took off of some vintage wheels that I got in a previous purchase, and I mean, they're in excellent condition. They still have the flashing from the molding on there, so that's excellent. This
rear body mount hadn't been cut yet. You can tell that it was used because there's some light scuffing there from where a body sat on it. But yeah, it hadn't been cut yet. And other than those two little scuff marks, brand new. The thing that I hated the most about this entire build was this gear cover. Getting these gear covers cut out correctly to fit is such a pain. So just take your time, and once that material is removed, you can't get it back on. So cut a little bit, and then get yourself like a sanding block, and then just keep rubbing it on there to make sure that all the perimeter of the Lexan is brought down in equal amount, so that you have a nice flush fit. The front hole barely made it. I went with the location, the dimple for the rear screw where it came out of the mold. There's a little dimple for a screw hole. They don't line up, and I didn't check that before I committed to the rear hole, so the front hole's barely got enough material on the front for the bolt to be completely inside the Lexan. So note to self when I'm doing the JrXT shelf queens to not commit to either one of those holes, because they don't actually line up with the holes in the motor plate. The diff feels like garbage because I didn't feel like rebuilding it. Because why bother? I'm putting it on a shelf. Also, no oil in the shocks, which is kind of weird. But again, I'm putting it on a shelf. So eventually, I will put an ESC receiver, servo, and motor on here. What is this? I don't know. It doesn't even have a label on it. It doesn't matter. This is the motor that was on the Junior 2 that I got. Good enough. Throw that on there. Unless, of course, I can find a Losi branded motor like I put on my JrX Pro. That's got a Junior's Choice in it. I know there's some, but I gotta get caught up. Yeah, so the video didn't work out quite the way I wanted with the high speed of the building, and so it's just kind of cut into chunks. I'm an RC guy, not a YouTube guy. What do you want from me? Regardless, I hope that you did find this entertaining and educational and enjoy vintage RC as much as I do. Stay tuned for more updates on the JrX2 restoration. There's no less than 3 more builds going to be taped. What is it, 1980? Going to be filmed, videotaped, recorded, stop it, for the channel. The 2 shelf queens and the runner. The runner should be neat to see what I come up with aftermarket parts. I got a bunch of RPM parts to put on that. By a bunch, I mean some of the rear links, front arms, and ball cups. Yeah, that's the bunch. RPM made a ton of parts for these Losi vehicles back in the day. Arms, steering, hubs, man, would I ever love to find some of that stuff, new old stock. But such is life. Anyway, folks, thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, but more importantly, commenting. I'd like to interact with you folks. Let me know if you had a JrXT down in the comments, and if you raced it, bashed it, whatever you did with it, when you got it. I'd love to hear and talk about vintage RC. Until next time, bye for now.